Catalyst 2030 is a movement of social entrepreneurs and innovators embracing collective action to achieve the SDGs by the deadline 2030. Our 1,500 members are active in 197 countries. By emphasizing collaborations, Catalyst 2030 is leveraging the power of the collective to accelerate real change in the lives of billions of people around the globe. What do our members say about Catalyst?
Catalyst 2030 is an invaluable global community of impact entrepreneurs.
Our relationship with Catalyst 2030 has really taught us the power of co-creation.
Join Catalyst 2030 and network, bond, and collaborate with our family members.
And I like the spirit of bringing change makers together to share and learn from each other.
Catalyst really understands the transformative nature of collaboration.
It's also a platform that can give us new tools and resources.
Catalyst 2030 has put my work on steroids.
But most importantly, to come up with solutions that are practical, ways where we can really make things happen, because social entrepreneurs are doers.
Are you a catalyst? Join us to achieve the SDGs.
Welcome everyone to today's session on Crescent, Catalyzing Recovery of Social and Community Enterprises for Transformation. That was a wonderful way to open it up, lots of energy. My name is Lina Ravindran Green, and I'm the founder and CEO of Angels of Impact, which operates in Asia Pacific with a presence in Singapore, the US, and New Zealand. I'll be acting as your moderator today. And just to give you some context about who I am, I come from about 30 years of experience in tech and about 15 years of experience in social entrepreneurship and social impact investing. And having worked in many roles, including senior advisor to Ashoka, Associate Director of the Asia Center for Social Entrepreneurship and Philanthropy at the NUS Business School. And currently I also co-lead, besides Angels of Impact, the restorative investing at the American Sustainable Business Network. Angels of Impact, just to give you some context of what we do, funds and supports women and Indigenous-led community-based enterprises doing the hard work on the ground, alleviating poverty, achieving gender equality through responsible and sustainable businesses. We work with empowered women who empower other women. They aggregate and add value to the work of other women, therefore more effectively taking people out of systemic poverty and doing gender transformation. We call them community-based enterprises, or some of you would have heard Professor Yunus calling them social businesses, as they are enterprises that are deeply entrenched in their communities, and they share wealth, thereby creating lasting impact to get them out of poverty. We see them as agents of change to build back fairer, as Dr. Lisa always puts it. And these are women who are often undervalued, underestimated, and underfunded. Traditional forms of investing, even impact investing, doesn't reach them because this pursuit of do good, do well often leaves them behind. Also, many of them are in what's called the missing middle. They're too large for microfinance and often too small for impact investing. So what we really need and what we're trying to drive is new forms of restorative investing with innovative and less extractive terms. And the goal is to steward resources to shift power and wealth back to marginalized communities with the lived experience to restore the harm that was done, build self-determination and ownership to those most harmed. But as we all know, money alone is not enough. We also need to support them with technical assistance. Last year, Angels of Impact, we worked with the ASEAN Committee for Women and ASEAN Foundation to fund and support 17 women-led enterprises in ASEAN to help them through the pandemic, through the funding of Norwegian government and a COVID relief fund, through many generous individuals. We successfully ran that program completely virtually, impacting about 11,000 lives. So we're very excited to be in this conversation and very grateful to be invited to see how we can explore ways in which different organizations working on amazing work on the ground can align our work together and help many more social and community-based enterprises so that we can all build back fairer for all. So today's session is entitled, as you know, Catalyzing Recovery of Social and Community Enterprises for Transformation, Crescent. I really love these acronyms that Dr. Lisa and her team comes up with. A global initiative for social enterprise recovery and innovation. So today we have all gathered here to seek and present and really go over an initial concept note of COVID-19 Crescent to generate inputs from the various Catalyze 2030 members and partners, especially those from developing countries, towards finalizing this concept note and to set up a global Catalyst 2030 working group to pursue program development, resource mobilization, and implementation. So some of the topics that we hope to cover today is a presentation of the salient points on the concept of setting up a COVID-19 Crescent Fund, program and fund, a panel of reactors from selected Catalyst 2030 members from Latin America and Africa, including representatives from Asia. And then we'll have an open forum in which you can then present and ask questions. But at the end of it, we hope to get a call for action at the end of the session to set up a global program and fund to assist social enterprises and their marginalized stakeholders to recover, to pivot, and innovate towards building back fairer, and to expand their coverage or create new ones in response to the challenges brought about by COVID pandemic and its aftermath. You know, in Angels of Impact, we found that a lot of social enterprises that we had been working with actually had about 2/3 of revenue cut from their program just through the pandemic. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So on this note, I'm now going to pass the floor over to Jeru Bilir-Moria, who is the co-founder of Catalyst 20. I just did a really quick search on her background, and she is quite an amazing person, has an entire Wikipedia page on herself as well, is an Indian social entrepreneur and founder of several international NGOs. Her work has been featured in so many books, and she has created so many amazing organizations, including Catalyst 2030. So on that note, I would like to pass the floor over to you, Jeru.
Thank you very much, Lina. And that was a fantastic opening from you. And what great work that you all are doing. I'm really here because when I spoke to Marie Lisa about what she was doing on Crescent and how she wanted to create this fund and how she should make it happen, I thought it was a brilliant idea. I know that something similar is happening in India. I know that we're trying to do something similar in Brazil. And what I told her is, why don't we see how we can then get everybody together to do something, or we can start over here with Crescent, see how Crescent is going, and then take the model and it can go somewhere else. Catalyst is, well, you all have seen the video, so I don't need to talk about it, but Catalyst is all about entrepreneurs sharing with each other. And it's also all about entrepreneurs who are going to be able to learn from each other, hopefully use the collective power to be able to get more funding, to be able to look at, not being able to do things individually. So I really personally strongly believe in what Crescent is doing and what Marie Lisa is doing. And I think with both her energy and the energy of everyone in this panel and the people who have joined, will really be able to co-create a wonderful design, which we can then take forward and actually have something from the South for the South. I think that to me is very, very important. And then see how we are able to take this forward everywhere else and in all other things. So personally, all I wanted to be here is to say, wow, super excited. And I think we'll have a fantastic session. And I want to thank everybody who's on this session and who's making it happen. And I know Cecilia will think of saying how we can take it to Latin America, and then we can see how we can take it to Africa, and we can just grow. So for me, this is a beginning, it's a start, and something which can grow global as all of us partner together. So thank you very much, and back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeru. That's a very powerful statement about the South helping the South. And I actually first heard that statement from President Mandela actually back in just after he came out of prison, and he was speaking about how we needed to have more South-South cooperation. So thank you for underscoring that. Goma, on to you. I believe you want to do a photo session.
Yes, Lina, I would like to request everybody to open your cameras. So together we can have a group photo as early as now. And also including Jeru. I think Jeru is also leaving for the other sessions later in towards the hour. So maybe we can request everyone to open their cameras. We have still friends who are, I think, contemplating on opening their cameras or not. And maybe we can take the photo now.
I have to say this is a brilliant idea. Maybe we should follow it in all other Catalyst sessions also. So as usual, an innovation which we can take forward.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks, Goma. You're always very innovative. Thanks.
Babs, can you take the photo now? Thanks.
Ready, everyone? We have 2 pages. So first page, just keep on smiling, everyone. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Next page. Okay, everyone smile again. 1, 2, 3. Great.
Hey, over to you, Lina.
Thank you so much. Yes, I agree, Jeru. It's always a great idea to all the amazing faces and the energies that come together should always be immortalized. Yeah, thank you. So the next, we were actually going to go to the lady of the session, Dr. Marie Dakane. I have had the pleasure of really always meeting her and being inspired by her. I'm sure all of you know her, but just as a moderator, I'll give her a quick introduction. Dr. Maria Lisa Dakane is the founding president of the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, ISEA, and is a pioneer, truly a pioneer in social entrepreneurship education and research in the Asia-Pacific region. In 2019, she was awarded an Outstanding Social Innovation Thought Leadership of the Year by the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship. Lisa is also the co-chair of Catalyst 2030 ASEAN chapter and focal point of the Social and Community Enterprise Constituency of the Asia-Pacific Regional CSO Engagement Mechanism. Over to you, Lisa. You're muted. You're on mute. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lina. And thank you, Jeru, for gracing our event. I will be presenting the COVID-19 Crescent, and I will just share my slides. Is that I have to, sorry, I have to.
We can see, yeah, great.
Yeah, I have to go to the front. Yeah. All right, so I will be making a presentation on the initiative that we are proposing as a global initiative of Catalyst 2030, and it's called Catalyzing the Recovery of Social and Community Enterprises for Transformation. And I will be presenting it in 3 parts. No? First, part 1 will be the discussion on the proposed COVID-19 Crescent Global Initiative. Part 2 will be presenting our initiative in the Asia-Pacific region and in the Philippines, because we've already started it. And part 3 will be a short call to action. Let me now go to the proposed global initiative. Maybe we should be talking about context and rationale first. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, global trends indicated, we all know this already, that the SDGs were unachievable by 2013. And there was a growing recognition that social entrepreneurship was an important pathway towards accelerating the SDGs. COVID-19 pandemic drastically changed the situation and context of social enterprises. As Lina was starting to say, they faced drastic cuts in revenues, with many still struggling to recover until now. A big number of social enterprises slowed down or even shut down their operations, especially the smaller ones. But the more stable social enterprises adapted and innovated, and ensured that they sustained services and partnerships with the poor and the marginalized who were affected the most by the pandemic. No? Also, some social enterprises pivoted to other value chains or diversified products or services. It is this stable, relatively more stable social enterprises and those who have pivoted and diversified that have actually been the precursor, the innovators, no, who have come together to bring about this COVID-19 Crescent initiative. The impact on the poor of COVID-19 is of course also already known to us, no? But just to put it in context, the ranks of the poor and marginalized swelled. An additional 97 million went into extreme poverty in 2020, in addition to the 689 million in 2019. No? And multidimensional poverty worsened by 2020 because it reached 1.3 billion in 107 developing countries, which represents 22% of the world's population. Of course, new needs have surfaced among the poor and marginalized given the new context of COVID. So in this overall context, it's critical for social entrepreneurs and social innovators to come together to ensure the recovery of the social enterprise sector and the poor that we serve, to optimize opportunities for inclusive recovery and building back fairer, and to reposition to fulfill our role as accelerators of the Sustainable Development Goals. So COVID-19 Crescent is being proposed as a global initiative to harness multi-stakeholder collaboration to assist the recovery and repositioning of the social enterprise sector as a major player in inclusive recovery towards building back fairer and accelerating the achievement of the SDGs. It shall pursue three sub-objectives. No? First, we will develop a global social enterprise recovery and innovation program. Second, we will develop a social enterprise recovery and innovation fund. And third is a global virtual hub that would support a decentralized management system for the program and fund. The proposed management system is going to be decentralized to ensure responsiveness to regional and country contexts. We will be harnessing the synergy among existing social enterprises and social enterprise resource institutions, as well as networks that already have the capability to manage various aspects of the social enterprise recovery and innovation program and fund. And a number of you, many of those of you who are present here actually, are going to be part of this existing networks and existing social enterprises and social enterprise resource institutions who will be implementing the program and fund. We also foresee a combination of core, affiliated, and leverage programs and funds. The core funds and programs are intended to enhance, replicate, and innovate on existing models to demonstrate immediate impact in 3 years' time, for example. And then the affiliated programs and funds intend to expand outreach and impact, and leverage programs and funds, which we don't need to control, but we just need to influence, no? shall have the function of scaling up outreach and impact. And together, we hope that we will be able to set up an evaluation measurement system that would project collective impact for COVID Crescent. And the desired global outcome of COVID-19 Crescent is by 2030, Crescent should have made a difference on the lives and livelihoods of 1 billion people living in extreme or multidimensional poverty as stakeholders of social enterprises, in the process directly contributing to accelerating the SDGs with measurable outcomes that we will be defining. And of course, we would want a successor generation of youth engaged in social entrepreneurship, rural revitalization, and sustainable development. Now, maybe at this point, I should share with you what we are doing in the Asia Pacific and the Philippines in terms of the COVID-19 Crescent initiative as a way of introducing how we are operationalizing this concept. I will first discuss the background of the initiative in the Asia Pacific region. I will be introducing to you social entrepreneurship platforms for inclusive recovery, building back fairer towards accelerating the SDGs that we set up in September 2020, that is actually going to be supported by the program and fund. I will be showing you examples of social enterprise initiatives that would be core program partners of Crescent in Asia Pacific. And then I would be presenting to you the Asia Pacific COVID-19 Crescent Working Group, as well as the Philippine COVID-19 Crescent Initiative and Working Group. In the Asia Pacific region, ISEA, since 2020, has actually been engaged in dialogues to create this concept or to co-create this concept, but we completed a concept note finally in March 2022. And since then, we have engaged in dialogues among and between stakeholders. And the stakeholders come mainly from three networks: ISEA members and partners, the Asia Pacific Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism, Social and Community Enterprise Constituency, which is officially recognized as in engaging the UN system in the Asia Pacific region on the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course, Catalyst 2030. The ISEA Regional Council formally agreed on the COVID-19 Crescent on April 18, 2022 during a regional council meeting. And the main intent that was agreed upon is to serve as a cross-cutting program and fund to 5 social entrepreneurship platforms for inclusive recovery and building back fairer towards accelerating the SDGs. As I said, these 5 social entrepreneurship platforms were set up in September 2020 at a conference that we ISEA, co-convened with UNESCAP to support social entrepreneurship as a pathway to accelerate the SDGs. And the cooperating organizations then were the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, Social Value Japan, and the Asia Pacific Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism, Social and Community Enterprise Constituency. Our sponsors included Japan Foundation Asia Center, Oxfam, and the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok. Now, these 5 platforms are actually thematic, and they contribute to they're contributing to inclusive recovery, building back fairer towards accelerating the SDGs in these thematic areas. The first platform is the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development that is co-convened by the Association of Progressive Communications and the ISEA. The second is the Decent Work for All in Sustainable Value Chains, which is co-convened by the World Fair Trade Organization, Asia, and the Asia Pacific Bureau for Adult Education. The third is a Health for All platform that's co-convened by Dompet Duafa in Indonesia and Suham Dan Foundation in India. The fourth is the Rural Revitalization Youth and Social Entrepreneurship Platform, co-convened by Rural Reconstruction Nepal, the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement, and the Sources for Action linked to the Rural Revitalization Movement in China. And the Women's Empowerment, Livelihoods, and Food in Agricultural Value Chains, co-convened by ISEA, Trubus Binasuwadayan, Indonesia, and CICIT in Vietnam. Now, I don't have the time to be explaining all that these platforms are doing, that they're in various levels of development. But what I wanted to do tonight to inspire the participants in this forum is to show you some of the examples of social enterprise initiatives in the 5 platforms that would be core program partners of the COVID-19 Crescent program, that will enhance, replicate, and innovate on existing social enterprise models to demonstrate impact. Let me give you a first example is Common Room and the Kasepuhan Chip Tagilar in Indonesia, which is bridging the digital divide and connecting the unconnected. This is part of the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform, and they are engaged in the development of community-based local internet services in remote areas in West Java province. Common Room Networks Foundation is handling the conceptual framework and operation, as well as managing the tripartite agreement, finance, and administration. Kasepuhan Chip Tagilar Indigenous Community, which is the village government, is serving as the representative of the primary stakeholders and beneficiaries, and they handle resource mobilization, local support, voucher distribution, and local technical assistance. And AWINEP is a partner ISP company that's handling local internet infrastructure development, bandwidth and licenses, technical support and maintenance, knowledge and skills transfer. The outcome of this initiative The outcome of this initiative is that by 2021, internet connectivity had reached 29 villages. It created new local jobs because they actually hired voucher agents and technicians. And this initiative also increased internet connectivity that has effectively supported remote education processes even during the pandemic. And internet access has directly supported COVID-19 pandemic preparedness efforts in the region. For the Decent Work for All in Sustainable Value Chains platform, an example I would like to share with you is a fair trade organization, Celine in Sri Lanka, that is empowering women through fair trade in the crafts subsector. They're engaged in sustainable livelihood development. They have 10 workshops in the rural outskirts of Sri Lanka, engaging more than 200 home workers, more than 200 people directly employed. In addition, 90% of these home workers and these directly employed are women, and they actually produce environment-friendly products. They are engaged in the provision of decent work because they're flexible. They have a flexible working model. They're nurturing entrepreneurs among the women. They're committed to paying a fair wage and providing consistent work. And they also provide childcare facilities. In terms of capacity building, they're doing health and wellness, and they're also building the capacity of these women in financial management, leadership, and entrepreneurship development. As for the Health for All platform, the example we'd like to share with you is SUHAM, or Sustainable Healthcare Advancement in India, which is a trust that was set up in 2007, serving healthcare initiatives of people's organizations in community health and nutrition, sanitation and safe water, and they have a flagship initiative involving 8 community hospitals in 3 states, providing cashless services for the poor through the provision of health services at 60% the market price. And the reason why the poor don't pay any cash is that the program also provides a mutual health insurance scheme. So their universal health access is provided through wellness centers at their doorstep and through virtual services, mobile clinics for early diagnosis, primary care clinics as hubs, secondary hospitals for specialty care, and they also give referrals for tertiary health care. The next, it's not moving. My slides are not moving. Buds, is it possible to help? I will continue to speak, but could you help with the next set of slides, please? I will stop sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It's not moving, so can I'll stop sharing and can you share, please? I'll continue to speak, but please share the next set of slides. Yeah. So our example for the rural revitalization, youth and social entrepreneurship is an initiative of the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement and their partner social enterprises in the Philippines. They are engaged in the development of social enterprises promoting food security that is smallholder based, engaged in sustainable agriculture and fishery, and they're part of a seed-to-table value chain system that ensure healthy and safe food. No? So one example of a social enterprise that they have set up is a social enterprise called Vizcaya Fresh in the northern part of the Philippines, which is producing and marketing organic vegetables. And to ensure farmer control over seeds, they're setting up community-based seed banks managed by women and youth producing open-pollinated varieties of vegetable seeds. And the reason why open-pollinated varieties of vegetable seeds is very important because those of us engaged in sustainable agriculture would know that in the market, hybrid seeds that are being sold by companies who control the seed system of vegetables are needing to be replaced by open-pollinated varieties that when planted can actually be, the quality of the seeds can actually be maintained over and over again, unlike hybrid seeds that are available in the market, sold by companies right now that deteriorate, the quality of the seeds deteriorate over time. Next slide, please. In terms of engaging, in terms of social enterprises in the women's empowerment, livelihood, and food and agricultural value chains, which is actually the most advanced platform. One example, engaging agrarian reform beneficiaries, is the Alter Trade Foundation and its partner Agrarian Reform Beneficiary Cooperatives and Associations, and the Negros Organic Fair Trade Association. And Alter Trade transformed more than 800 assetless agricultural workers, turned agrarian reform beneficiaries into entrepreneurial farmer leaders and members of cooperatives and associations. And these serve as supplier communities for fairly traded organic Muscovado sugar, vehicles for diversifying their crops and incomes, and they're serving as lead organizations for community development visioning, planning, and implementation towards the setting up of community-based water and health systems. Next slide, please. The Negros Organic and Fair Trade Association, as a partner of Alter Trade, is a federation of agrarian reform beneficiaries and cooperatives and associations that serves as a voice of the agrarian reform beneficiaries in the Alter Trade Board. They represent the agrarian reform beneficiaries in joint ventures and negotiations, so that, for example, they to negotiate better terms with sugar mills, they're able to use NOFTA. And they also set up, together with Alter Trade, a social enterprise called NOFTA Fair Trade House, which is a joint venture between Alter Trade Foundation and NOFTA, which is the trading and marketing arm of the social enterprise system. The next slide that I'd like to present to you is an example of engaging fishers in Thailand, Lemon Farm, and the Association of Thai Fisherfolk Federation's Fisherfolk Enterprise. The Fisherfolk Enterprise was co-developed with Oxfam, a blue brand of fresh, responsibly fished and formalin-free seafood. And the Fisherfolk Enterprise enabled fishers engaged in community-based coastal resource management and sustainable fisheries to benefit more and from better prices and higher incomes for their produce. No? And working with Fisherfolk Enterprise is Lemon Farm Cooperative, which serves as a market channel for Fisherfolk Enterprises Blue Brand certified seafoods and 3,000 other natural and organic agricultural products of small-scale producers certified through a participatory guarantee system, or PGS. No? And Lemon Farm is actually owned by 28,000 consumer and producer households with a chain of 11 groceries in Bangkok. No? My next example, which is actually the last, is Bota Central and the Philippine Coffee Alliance, and a local NGO called TRICOM, and the Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures, as well as the Kulaman Manobo Dulangan Organization, which is an indigenous peoples organization. The TRICOM, the NGO, and the Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures are partnered with. No? TRICOM, Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures, and the Kulaman Manobo Dulangan Organization, which is the indigenous peoples organization in the area, is engaged in the production, processing, and marketing of Kape Dulangan, which is their own brand of coffee to a growing local market as part of their ancestral domain development plan. And the Sultan Kudarat Coffee Ventures Incorporated is one of more than 50 community-based coffee enterprises in the Philippine Coffee Alliance, which is led and assisted by Bota Central with their Coffee for Life program. No? And so they produce coffee beans sustainably, they process and market their own coffee brands, and they get a more substantive share of value from the value chain of coffee. And this whole system of 50+ community-based coffee enterprises engaged in the Philippine Coffee Alliance actually have impacted on 5,000 farmers, women, and youth in the coffee subsector. So those are just examples. Next slide, please. Those are the examples I wanted to share with you, just so you have a good idea about the nature of the social enterprises that are actually behind the 5 platforms that I was mentioning. And so may I now go into the COVID-19 Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group. No? So inspired by what the five platforms have been doing over the past past year, no? Because we set up the platforms in September 2020, and they've been functioning at different levels of development up to the present. We actually set up a COVID-19 Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group in order for us to create the COVID-19 Crescent supportive to the 5 platforms. And the working group is expected to provide guidance, inputs, and assistance to program development and resource mobilization efforts in the region. The duration initially would be for 6 months, and the output within 6 months by October 2022 is an enhanced concept note. The features of the concept note that is initial, I've shared with you tonight. But we're hoping that apart from an enhanced concept note, that we would also have a core program proposal by October 2022. The frequency of our meetings about 1 to 2 times per month. Next slide, please. And the COVID-19 Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group has as composition co-conveners, representatives of the 5 platforms, and members volunteering to undertake specific tasks to fulfill the mandate of the working group. And supporting the Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group is staff coming from ISEA performing secretariat functions. And we are actually in the process of getting an output-based consultant to do research, document meetings, and draft an enhanced concept note and a core program proposal in partnership with the working group. Next slide, please. I just wanted to flash to you the COVID-19 Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group composition. Our co-conveners include myself as representative of Catalyst 2030. ISEA has its own representatives, and WFTO Asia, Sopan, I think, is here with us tonight, and you might meet him during the open forum. The members of the Crescent Asia Pacific Working Group includes Laina, whom you've already met because she's the moderator, Sunit Shestra from Thailand, also Catalyst 2030 India and Nepal chapters. I believe Arjun Batari is here, so you might meet him during the open forum as well. And of course, representatives of the platform. Some of them are with us tonight as well. Next slide, please. I just wanted to also say that the COVID-19 Crescent in the Philippines is now being initiated by an organization, a coalition called Poverty Reduction through Social Entrepreneurship Coalition that has decided to lead a country-level pilot implementation of the Crescent initiative. The Poverty Reduction through Social Entrepreneurship Coalition is the one lobbying for a social enterprise bill in Congress, but it's composed of social enterprises, social enterprise resource institutions, academic institutions, and other advocates, no, for poverty reduction through social entrepreneurship. And we have decided to lead a country-level pilot implementation of the Crescent initiative in the Philippines. Next slide, please. And here I'm flashing to you the COVID-19 Crescent Philippine Working Group. I don't know who are here tonight, but Altertrade Foundation and Philippine Coffee Alliance, who I presented to you, are actually co-conveners with ISEA. And the members include Gandang Kalikasan or Human Nature, Foundation for Disabled. I saw Romel Abuyan earlier. I think you might meet him during the open forum. And also De La Salle University. I believe Norby is also here. And PhilDev Foundation, Kevin. I imagine he's also here. Anyway, I wanted to end here, but with a global call to action. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. So the initiative that we're proposing as a global initiative, we've already started in Asia Pacific and in the Philippines. No? And the ways that forum participants and Catalyst 2030 chapters, members, partners, as well as other interested stakeholders may be involved are the following. No? First, you can help to co-create the initiative by leading or joining the COVID-19 Crescent Working Group that would undertake program development and resource mobilization at the regional, sub-regional, or country level. The second is to lead, co-create, or join a country-level pilot COVID-19 Crescent initiative to demonstrate proof of concept during the first 3 to 5 years. And as I said, we're already starting one in the Philippines. And then third is at an appropriate time, we would like to think about co-creating the setting up of a global COVID-19 Crescent Working Group. I guess this third agenda of setting up a COVID-19 Crescent working group is something we can discuss in the open forum, but it's something we're also putting up as a possibility if there's enough interest in regions beyond Asia Pacific. Thank you very much, and back to you, Laina.
Thank you very much. I think those concrete examples you shared also does inspire everyone to kind of see how you've led the way in terms of what can be done. So this next section, we're going to go into reactors. And the first reactor we have is Maria Gabriela Arenas, who is the co-founder of the TAAP Foundation, art team lead at Round Glass Learning, and former CEO of the Aid Life Foundation. She has co-created and directed programs and organizations that impacted on more than 3 million beneficiaries in vulnerable communities in Latin America and the world. Her goal is to promote peace, generate social development projects and social enterprises that increase the well-being of communities using collaboration, creativity, and social innovation as tools to develop critical thinking and understanding to drive systemic change. She's an Ashoka Fellow, Rotary Peace Fellow, Perennial Fellow, co-founder of the Weaving Lab, co-chair of Catalyst 2030 Latin America chapter, and also a leader at Colombia Cuida, or Colombia taking care of Colombia. Over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you for the introduction. And it's so fun first because nobody knows me as Maria Gabriela. That is my complete name. I always use Gabi Arenas, and it's the way that everybody knows me in the sector. And thank you, Lisa, for inviting us from Latin America to be part of this initiative. This initiative born for the same reasons in South Asia that born in Latin America, you know. After COVID, most of the social entrepreneurs have to face a lot of challenge, you know, challenge that wasn't related to what we were doing before. The social entrepreneurship sector was always facing challenge related by funding or by a scaling process, and that was normal to us. But during COVID-19, we realized that there is not only a challenge to find funds, or there is not only a challenge to scale your program. It's a challenge to keep going an organization when yourself as a person are struggling with the same issues that everybody is struggling, you know? And I want to keep your attention for one moment on one side of this initiative that we are not seeing. The reason why we are creating this initiative for support social entrepreneurs is not only about funds, it's also about well-being, because the social entrepreneurs have to deal, especially the leaders of the organization, have to deal with the funds issues, the human resource issues, the community issues, but at the same time, you have to deal with your own well-being as social entrepreneur. And I think it's important for us, especially because we are in Catalyst trying to create this movement from peers to support the achievements of the SDGs. It's important for us to realize that it's not possible to achieve SDGs and it's not possible to achieve social development if we are not conscious about what we need, what our teams need, and what the communities that we serve needs. And that is the first step. And I think Lisa chairs a lot of initiatives that are very good examples of how to do this, because the key in these particular moments is the collaboration, you know, the understanding and the collaboration between social entrepreneurs. I remember maybe 15 years ago when I started my journey as social entrepreneur, we were always competing, you know, we were competing for funds, you know, because like 100, 200 organizations were competing for the same fund. And that wasn't enough for us. And at the end, we realized that don't make sense. And we started to create another forms to collaborate. But that forms of collaboration were always crossed by the idea of the your own project or your own methodology or what you know. We are so in love of our organization, and we know how our methodologies work, and not necessarily we're open to learn from anyone else because we know what is working. And right now we realize that it's important to learn, it's important to listen. I'm in Thailand right now, I'm in South Asia, working in your region, and my role here is learn as much as I can and share our experience from the other side of the world. Maybe that experience could be useful in some contexts, or maybe not, because the contexts are different, but we learn how to collaborate, we learn how to open our minds, how to be open to create these kind of initiatives. And the idea of create this fund is not only related with money, it's also related with the possibility to collaborate in an openness way, is also related with the idea of create systemic change. Our system, the social entrepreneur system, is a system like any other system. We have to deal with funders, we have to deal with allies, with governments, with media, like any other system. If you compare the social entrepreneur system with the educational system or the business sector, is very similar as a system, And we were in the last 10 years realizing how we can change the system, our system. Because if we want to change other systems, we need to learn how to change our own system and our own reality. And the only way to do that is start from the beginning. And the beginning is the well-being of the organizations, the well-being of the social entrepreneurs, the possibility to keep going with your programs and scale your program, to measure your impact, and also to share what you are learning. Because it's not possible for a social entrepreneur of sharing and collaborate if they're trying to survive. And Lisa explained how many social entrepreneurs struggle to keep open their organizations in Asia during COVID. In Latin America, the situation is very similar. Most of the grassroots organizations closed their operations, which is sad because we need to understand that the grassroots organizations are the only ones who really knows what is happening in the communities, because they are there, they live in the communities, And I can't pretend as an international organization that I have the same knowledge that they have. That is not true. Even if I am a very good organization with very good practices and methodologies, it's not the same as I live in the community. And most of them close their operation. And that is a problem for our sector and our system. And we need to realize that. And another thing that we need to understand is most of the social entrepreneurs who are doing like a second level impact, supporting the grassroots organization and connecting and communicating and weaving the communication with the international organization and the funders, are struggling, not only because they are struggling for human resource, because most of the people that was in social sector realized that this is not a sector where you can grow up and have social security and have a future for you, as a professional. And we need to realize that, because anyone that is in this sector could think, why I'm doing this if I can be in a company, or I can be in the government, or I can be in a school or in a university and have social security, pension fund, health insurance, and here I don't have nothing more than what we feel doing our job. And I think we need to realize that as a sector, and we need to be sure as social entrepreneurs that we are not creating something that is depending always from outside, because we always talk about assistantialism, and we always talk about the damage of assistantialism do in the communities. And if we don't create a system self-sustainable and healthy, where the people can have social security, pension funds, funds to work and a process to grow up as professionals, we will be creating something that is dependent from the assistantialism of the government. And we never can have impact in that way. We always depends of the outside. And if something we learn from COVID is what we have strong in our sector, the passion, the knowledge, the willing of the people to be in the front line, that is not easy to find in other places. But at the same time, we learn about our fallacies and what we need as a sector. And I think right now we need to realize that we have to work together. Doesn't matter if you came from Latin America, North America, Europe, South Asia, and Africa. We need to realize that we need this change as part of the system that we are. Catalyst is one example of this change. The movement that Lisa chaired are part of this change. Colombia, Cuida Colombia, which is one of the initiatives that I work with, is one of this change. But we need to change the system. You know, we need to put in practice what we promote to other systems in our own system. And I think that is a challenge for us because we need to prove that we can do it. We can do it with ourselves as we promote it to others. And that is my commitment in my understanding of this group. You know, I want to share, as I know, in system change and our experience in order to change our own system and in order to guarantee that every social entrepreneur in the world has the security and the support to grow, to do their job, and to do it well, with the commitment and the passion and as they always have, but with the security that at the end of they work, they have our support to have pension, to have health, to have a life, the life that they deserve because they pass their life serving others. And as system, we need to learn how to serve there also. And that is my reflection about this experience. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to chair and to collaborate for the first time with other social entrepreneurs in South Asia, in Africa, because most of the time we receive initiatives from other parts of the world that are not necessarily aligned with what we need in our sector, in our countries. And this initiative is incredibly valuable because it came from us, you know, from what we know and what we need in our everyday job in the communities. And I think this is a light of hope for every social entrepreneur in our regions that have to change their organization or close their organization that are coming, because we are trying to create something for all of us and something meaningful and something that can change our future together. Thank you.
Wow. Very, very powerful words, Gabby, and very pertinent. I resonated a lot with everything you say, the going back to the existential issues, right? The escalation of well-being, even making sure that recognizing that while we're trying to help other people, we are also going through our own well-being issues. And key thing that stood out for me also was we're trying to have systems change. How do we make sure that we have systems change ourselves too? So really powerful words. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, Gabby. On that note, we're going to now move to our next reactor, Cecilia Foxworthy, who is the CEO of Agora Partnerships. Cecilia Foxworthy has spent over a decade leading and supporting impact organizations for strategic growth and innovation across the globe, with a targeted focus on the Americas. Her experience spans strategic design, program creation, business development, and organizational change for entrepreneurship, youth development, and women's economic empowerment initiatives. Previously, she held roles directing and managing operations and marketing for Global Citizen and Global Goods Partners. Additionally, Cecilia has founded and built 2 organizations, Taurus Teens and Small Fry, to address education and economic opportunity gaps in disadvantaged communities in the US. Cecilia holds an MBA from Baruch College, an MS in Global Education from Drexel, and a BS in Apparel Design from Virginia Tech. And she's currently, as I mentioned, the CEO of Agora Partners. Over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you so much. And I just want to sort of piggyback on what Gabby just said. I think sort of 3 points that she made about sort of collective learning. Again, like you mentioned, the systems change, and that recognizing that we need to address our own system first before we sort of try to make change across the systems. And I think the sort of homegrown nature of these initiatives is what is really important. So at Agora Partnerships, we work exclusively in Latin America with small and growing businesses to support them to get the capacity building, market linkages, and access to finance that they need to, in fact, become more productive and sustainable. And so I think my comments are sort of informed by that work, but also, work that I just personally have done in the fair trade industry with artisans, with sort of smallholder farmers, et cetera, mostly in the Latin American context. But I think a couple of things. So one, because gender equity is in fact one of our key focus areas and also is in fact enormously important for any initiative. At least in the Latin American context. And I imagine this was also the case across the world. But, women were and are employed in the sectors that were hardest hit by the COVID pandemic. And I think it's really important to highlight that all of these challenges existed before COVID. COVID simply, and I'm not trying to diminish the effects of COVID, but honestly, at the end of the day, what it did is made us wake up. These things were already happening. Latin America is the 2nd most climate affected region in the world. And these effects are going to continue. They're going to snowball. And I think that if we don't, not to be the doomsday person, but if we don't act right now in a very, very large scale and collectively, then honestly, I don't think that we have much of a chance. And it's going to take everyone working together. And I think we all know that. But I would encourage to sort of look at these initiatives as a bigger sort of scope. It's not just COVID. I mean, honestly, climate is actually the biggest phenomenon, if I can say it that way, that is affecting all of our regions. And it will continue to be because we have not successfully figured out how to mitigate the effects of our actions as human beings. So I think that leads me to say also that, we support entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, excuse me. I think that part of it, for me at least, is that we need to figure out how to be as inclusive as possible and sort of recognize that there are literally millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of small and growing businesses across the Latin American region, across every single region in the world. And if we don't recognize that they individually and in aggregate have the power to affect positive change, then I think we're missing a big piece of the puzzle. Those of us, I still, when I use the word social entrepreneurship, I still get so many blank stares. It's just the fact, like it's still, even though we've been at this for decades, it still elicits sort of blank stares a lot, because a lot of small and growing businesses, for example, are specifically employing people in their local communities that wouldn't otherwise have work, are in fact creating sort of regenerative initiatives so that they can, keep surviving and keep creating livelihoods. They are creating positive impact. They just don't classify themselves as social entrepreneurs. And I think us as a movement, we need to recognize that, and recognize that without them, without the quote unquote traditionals, we don't have the numbers. But with them, that aggregate potential impact is enormous, and we can actually do it. And I do believe that there is, and I know there is actually, because of some of the work that we've done, I know there is appetite for it in the more quote unquote traditional sort of small businesses or entrepreneurs. Not everybody, of course, I'm not saying that we need to convince everybody, but I think that that's a big part of our role as agents of change, is to help other people realize where they are already making positive impact, how to amplify that and extend it. And we don't need to necessarily, I know that sort of labels are sort of helpful sometimes, but I think that we maybe need to just open it up to say, are you interested in making a positive difference in your community, both on environmentally and socially, and bring them into the conversation? And that applies, that applies to the private sector as well, because again, they have enormous numbers. And if we don't learn how to sort of play nice with them while also still pushing them to be genuinely committed to these kinds of, and I say genuinely committed to these kinds of changes, then again, I think we're missing another big piece of the puzzle. There are a lot of initiatives already going on, and it's also about identifying which ones that we can scale up collectively without how do you say that, without sort of getting bogged down into ownership. So I think that that's sort of a challenge for not just our sector, but every single sort of collaborative action initiative is the ownership piece, which then also leads me to reflect on the balance of power. So I think that in any funding situation, in any market situation, I mean, we must recognize that there is an imbalance of power. And I think that these kinds of initiatives that Catalyst is proposing, and many that we've seen, of course, also in the Latin American context, that are collaborative action initiatives, have to address that imbalance of power. And, part of the call to action, I think, should be that we sort of, I know people get scared when they hear the word redistribution, but that is what we need to do. We need to distribute resources and the power dynamics so that this, in fact, is a participatory design situation. It's not just design, but participatory implementation as well. And that also means anytime that there's capital involved, I do feel like we need to learn how to include the voice and vote of the people who would be directly impacted by the mobilization of that funding in the first place. And that is something that I don't think that we've figured out how to do, but it is very possible, very possible. And there perhaps are some examples out there, but not fully. So I think that this might be a really good opportunity to show that it's possible and to create the roadmap to replicate that kind of participation from, like we already said, south to south. But it's even more than that, because within south to south, there are lots of different, Latin America in and of itself is the most economically and gender inequitable region in the entire world. So within south to south, even, we need to be paying attention to these power imbalances and make sure that the people who are, I don't like the word beneficiary, but quote unquote beneficiaries of these resources are the ones driving the use. So I think that's all I'll say for right now, but I do think that we need further reflection in terms of how to bring in the more quote unquote traditionals that have the aggregate potential to create impact, and that we need to engage in extreme sort of participatory mechanisms that allow imbalances of power to be decimated. And we need to pay attention to gender equity, of course, and ever-present climate disasters, and how to not just mitigate and be resilient, but actually also change that course, because we just don't have time. We need to act with extreme urgency at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Very, very pertinent points that I take away from what you said as well, reminding us that the aggregate of small and growing businesses are a key component to climate action, and also the concept of the balance of power. So that's why, if you notice my introductory comments, I talked about the importance of shifting power and wealth back to marginalized communities as well. And that's part of what restorative economics is. So thank you for highlighting that. Next, we're going to move on to Yame Ngoe, who is the member of the Co-Leadership Catalyst 2030 chapter. He's the founder of Sustainable Cities Africa, a Botswana-based Africa-focused sustainable city strategy service firm, promoting an African context to integrated, measurable urban development frameworks. Yame is focused on sustainability practice, ecosystem building, nurturing linkages to appropriate investment mechanisms, and various structured mentorship engagements supporting entrepreneurial-driven individuals. He volunteers his time in various Pan-Africa initiatives, such as African Circular Economy Network, Botswana Country Representative in Catalyst 2030 Africa Chapter Core Leadership Team, Ashoka Foundation, Botswana Nominator for the Ashoka Fellowship, and the ICLEI Africa Circular African Cities Community of Practice. Over to you, Yame.
Thank you, Elena, for that wonderful introduction. I think I really want to commend not only the sharing of knowledge on the side of our Asia Pacific colleagues, who have really gone to really wonderful lengths to actually not only prepare this, curate this idea of Crescent, but also come up with something that's truly pertinent and necessary at this time. Because I think we talk about after COVID, but we never really articulate what that could look like. And I like Cecilia's point about now that shifting of restorative power, because somewhere in there, COVID itself has really gone and not only just exacerbated, but it's also exposed the deep inequalities and just basically the brokenness of the systems that we have been taken as things that are just carrying us as not only as individuals, but also communities. So we've never really been present, mentally, and just being aware as to the challenges that we were actually going through. We're just going through motions, if I can call it that, not only as individuals, but also as communities and also as whole industries, if I can say that. From my side, I think I'm conscious of time, but I really want to just echo the points from the previous responders, because they've said a lot of what really needs to be said here. And I think if you've noticed anything about the points that they've brought up, they've really focused on a number of issues that are talking to issues of how we need to really be, when we're taking a step back and looking at what is possible, what Crescent is enabling for what is possible, not only for the social enterprise sector, but also in terms of this sense of identity for the global South to actually now grasp something which is by them, for them, So there's an issue of need. That thing cannot go. You need to be finding a way to address a clear need here, and it's about the need of those who have suffered most, who are actually in the communities, who are actually the ecosystem builders, who are actually lifting up these communities and keep holding them together, if I can call it that. And I think you heard Gabby's point, and that's like they are exhausted. They're exhausted more because of maybe they were not aware of how much they were carrying in this work that they were doing, but also in just trying to make sure that there's survival, something survives after COVID, you know, and they've been trying to battle to keep something together, but somewhere in that, in trying to find new ideas, get through COVID itself, it was just a truly exhausting experience. But so need. Then, if you've noticed anything about both what of Gabby and Cecilia, and also even Lisa's point, this issue of identity. This issue of identity is rooted in the same. This is a very important point, because it's only when you have taken a step back and have actually become a little bit more aware of your own identity, what's important to you, who you are, and what it is that's important to you. That's when now, I think Gabby made the point of now you must understand your own systems before you can actually start to affect other systems. So this issue of identity is actually quite critical. And I think a lot of the issues here, if you notice anything else, what Crescent is also really trying to do here, and what I think anybody who's been listening should actually take up from this, is this ability to use the power of collaboration, connectedness, of proximate actors, those who are closest to the challenge and the issues, but enabling them to be not only present, but also be there where the decisions have been made, where the funding now is aligned to their need, aligned to their identity, but now it should enable them to now collaborate and accelerate this issue of connectedness. If you are looking around and you see those who are like you, but now this is something that's enabling you to connect, then I think you saw also in Lisa's presentation, this sense that social enterprise is actually a very cross-cutting. Once you have that identity that I am a social entrepreneur or social innovator, it cuts across the entire, industries in terms of facets of life, education, health, issues of waste management. It could even be issues of women empowerment and rural challenges and opportunities, so on and so forth, the energy access, equity. So it really cuts across. But what that will do when you bring all these disparate actors together who see each other, this issue of cross-pollination is actually quite critical. And I think Gabby talked about it, the points about how the ideas and that ability to now, when you have taken this step back to refresh and reflect, this issue of interweaving and understanding the second deeper layer of the resources and the skills and everything else, that ability now when it comes out, it will actually enable a lot of people to actually now start to be able to not only cross-pollinate across sectors, but what this is trying to do is cross-pollinate across regions. So in an African context, for example, we talk about inter-African trade. I think a lot of people hear about the African Continental Free Trade Area. What that is doing is trying to unlock the full power of what Africa has always been more or less denied to do, because this is probably not only one of the poorest regions in the world, but it's also the region whereby predominantly, I think jumping off of Cecilia's last point, 27 of the 40 most climate affected countries in the world are actually in sub-Saharan Africa. So this issue of climate has now come to the fore. So there is no time like the present for something of this nature. And for us, really, from an African perspective, the lens for us is not only from Africa, Catalyst 2030 Africa chapter, but also just as Africans, we've really said, no, enough is enough. We need to start dealing and talking to issues that are really about our needs. We identify with these issues, but they speak to our identity, but also enable us to actually now take action to solve challenges that we face. But take up the opportunities that are presenting and bring that not just African narrative, but really just bring that African voice, where when we speak it, we hear it, and these sound like things that are coming out of our own mouths, talking to our own issues. So I really want to highlight a very important issue for us here in the African context. We came up with an initiative called Africa Forward. It will be announced tomorrow as part of this Changing Catalyst Week, Catalyzing Change Week, sorry. It's called Africa Forward. So we're talking here to changing the funding narrative. So this will be a session tomorrow, but at the core of it, it's actually talking to a lot of things which I think the other respondents are talking to. This issue of funding, issue of leadership, issues of scale, issues of connecting or creating networks. And for us, what this will really do for us, unlike you saw with what Lisa was presenting, they have really gone to extraordinary lengths to actually create the entities or the networks that connect them. We've never been there. We've never been there. We've actually always had donors coming here telling us about our problems, telling us about how these things should be done. So our governments have been, I wouldn't say brainwashed, but they took upon them to believe that somehow this was something that we don't have our own answers. So therefore you wait for either World Bank or IMF, or you find donor agencies, any other entity coming from outside to come and put together a program that can actually start to do anything. Now, more and more we realize, COVID has done that, exposed that this is actually not sustainable. This is not true. This is something that we actually have not only a responsibility, but we actually have the capacity and the capability to start to bring out these kind of institutions and these kind of entities. But this starts at a very important point. I think what the other respondents have actually highlighted, when you do not have that identity, that, for example, I am this, it makes it very difficult for you to start to speak up to now saying this is what's important to me, and then speak to your why. This is a very important point, because what I mean by this is that we still, because of these issues that Africa has faced, we still have legacy issues. We have NGOs, civil society organizations, trade associations, youth groups, women's groups, charities, who are still waiting for a donor to come and do a call for proposal. And this is truly because they can't see that they have to change either their business models or service models, which is meaning measuring impact and actually being ready to what's called to manage impact. They cannot even know what the evidence of good quality data or anything so they don't do that work. So they're not visible to international donors. So now they're being left behind. So as a result, it looks like Africa is doing nothing. And people are now importing knowledge saying, look, we have the answers. When in actual fact, it really stems from that issue of, have you taken the time to actually speak to your need, start to identify with this is who I am. And now start to say, I am a social entrepreneur, or I'm capacitating social innovation to happen. And when you start to do that, what this is actually speaking to is something that Crescent is embedded in what I was talking to with Africa Forward. We start to build the ecosystem, strengthening the ecosystems and the environments around us, which now can actually help us to actually now start to build the structures and build the tools that we need, or I think the systems that somebody said, the systems that we will require for long-term inclusivity, resilience, and sustainability. So even if an initiative like Crescent comes, will it now be able to now have that momentum to now sustain the inclusivity, sustain the resilience, sustain that action that needs to come? So for me, this is really my takeaway, and this is why, for example, and this is one last thing. This is why, as the Catalyst 2030 Africa chapter, they have been nominated to be part of this global thematic working group. So from my side, the groups that are going to be coming, I am going to be actually participating to meaningfully make sure that we actually, if the door is not opening for us, we're going to create our own door. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yame. Your passion about this issue comes straight across in Zoom, and I truly appreciate that. I think two of my takeaways from what you said also is the importance of that identity that allows for people to then collaborate and band together and build that ecosystem around what is needed to showcase. But I think the other thing also, what you and both Cecilia also mentioned, is that COVID has pretty much, it's not really COVID, it's just COVID helped us be like an X-ray to make it very visible that the system is broke. And the system is actually what caused a lot of the problems. And for us to be able to change it, identity and passion and collaboration is very important. Thank you very much, all the reactors. We are actually now at the part of the program, which is the open forum. We have some confirmed people who have already asked to speak. So I'm going to first call on Swapan Kumar Das from Bangladesh, who's the Vice President of the World Fair Trade Organization, Asia. Swapan? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your introduction. It is so much to learn than to speak from these spaces. One thing I should say that WFT Asia, I must borrow the word of Gavi, the collaboration. and the coordination. These words are very much used in WTO Asia, because we have 21, we have interventions in 21 countries, and we have 148 member organizations. And also we work with 6 country networks. There are 2 different ways to reach the artisans. That's the biggest strength of WTO Asia, to reach the artisans, that how what they are doing, and give them some directions, like as previously, Yami was saying that there are way outs. One thing we during the COVID we said, well, people did not stop buying, so we have to present something to our artisans, to our social enterprises or the fair trade enterprises, so that they can earn something and they can help themselves to survive. So this way, every time, without challenges there, without risks, there is no business. Even though social enterprises are very small in size, or the fair trade enterprises, they struggle to market their product, mostly involved in handmade or handicraft products. But fair trade Asia or WFT Asia always would have something to offer to them. And this is just not the money or the depending on someone. It is a collaboration. I can give you one example. Like during the COVID season, we needed to sell mask product, face masks, and then we connected some people who used to make fabrics, and those fabrics are taken by some other producers who made the face masks. So there were collaboration within the groups. So within the country, within the nations, this kind of collaboration, this kind of coordination were very much helpful for the small and the medium enterprises to be able to do their business sustainably. And we're hoping that this kind of thing would happen a lot in the future. And having a connection with this program would be a blessing for our artisans and the small and medium enterprises. I believe that it would help a lot. And thank you very much for making us a part of it. I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I think the work that you do is very important. And at Angels of Impact, we like to always say that, women and are the weavers of a fabric of a resilient society, and working with artisans, whether it's male or female, they are the weavers that create community together. So thank you for sharing the work you do. Next, we're going to call on Mayaya Mark, who is the founder of Sustainable Beekeeping and Human Development, co-founder or project coordinator of the New Wash Burn Foundation, and co-founder of Ecosystem Restoration Camps Tanzania, also the country director of Catalyst 2030 in Tanzania. Over to you, Mayaya. Goma?
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, it's an introduction has been done. Start Maya Mata, the founder of Sustainable Beekeeping and Human Development. That is a little bit about. What I want to say is that as Crescent, as I have from the other presenters, is that it is really needed in the social entrepreneur and social enterprises. Because pandemic has affected small enterprises and entrepreneur, businesses. So there is a real need of covering these social enterprises so that we can really bring something around.
We're having difficulty hearing you, Mayaya. Sorry, Mayaya, I can't hear you. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem. Your
We also cannot hear him, Lina. Maybe we can proceed to the next speaker and call him back later.
Okay, sure.
I'll coordinate with him. Thanks.
So who do we have next? We had on the list, let's see, Kevin de la Cruz. Is he available?
Okay, so good day, everyone. All right. So my name's Kevin. I'm from PhilDev Foundation. I'm the Entrepreneurship Manager. So PhilDev Foundation is a nonprofit organization based in the Philippines and in the United States. And our work is actually in enabling technology and technology to enable success in entrepreneurship, in education, and innovation. So we're using technology for impact so that we can enable various institutions here in the Philippines, to enable them to develop more entrepreneurs and enterprises. So in our case, in our perspective, how can Crescent help our stakeholders? So I have 4 points here. So, and I appreciate the reactors earlier, their perspective given the Crescent initiative. So first is, if we're going to be tapping social enterprises, specifically, in PhilDev, since we are working with diverse stakeholders such as the government, which include, of course, the Department of Trade and Industry. We're also working with international organizations in developing social enterprises in the Philippines. So Crescent Initiative allows these institutions to tap enterprises that have a greater appreciation of the issues on the ground. Meaning, we're not just talking about the proximity of the enterprises and their partners in the areas of concern, but we're also talking about the systems to make it easy for such innovations to be implemented. Because we can think of an innovation, a social enterprise or even the government can think of an innovation, but when there is collaboration, it will be easier for them to cascade it, given the systems that there will be lesser barriers to entry, given the greater understanding of the issues. So there. So the next one is we're able to innovate further in combating the effects of COVID, because definitely the issue here, okay, we might be already entering the post-pandemic phase, but of course, the effects are still, up until now, it's still being felt by people. So it's important that through the Crescent initiative, social enterprises, along with other institutions, will co-create these new responses. Because social enterprises, we can say that they're mostly an untapped sector here in the Philippines. So if you're talking about, let's say, extending social support or social services, maybe social enterprises can make sure that it reaches, the services will definitely reach the unreached, at the same time improve the impact that's being made to ultimately recover from the effects of COVID. Then the third point is sustainable change leading to post-pandemic recovery, because since we have the mindset of sustainability given the business model, given the system that has been created operationally and organizationally in a social enterprise, if there's a collaboration with social enterprise networks, definitely there will be sustainable change that can be felt in various communities in the Philippines, because definitely we are erasing the possibility that there will be band-aid solutions. So Crescent enables the development of more sustainable solutions. And then fourth and last, there is a collaboration with related solutions, because there are solutions that are, especially in our case, in PhilDev, when in the onset of the pandemic, we had this innovative solutions grant facility. So we partnered with UNDP. We were able to provide grants to social enterprises who have innovations using their own resources, skill set, and their existing products. They were able to develop mini projects to respond to specific community COVID needs. So, and we can actually do that in collaboration with, of course, funders, at the same time with social enterprises and even the government, so that we can make sure that these collaborations can make sure that there will be uniform solutions to what's seen as a general problem. So there. So through Crescent, hopefully PhilDev and the social enterprises we work with can greatly benefit from these 4 specific points. So there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Next, we're going to have Arjun Bhattaraj, Executive Director of Nepal Development Initiative. Arjun?
And thank you. It's my great pleasure to speak with you, and thank you for my introduction. Actually, I am Arjun Bhattaraj, and also I am coordinator at Catalyzing Nepal, and also I am also part of the Secretary General of NGO Federation of Nepal, which is the umbrella of this NGO, and we are doing social enterprise movement since 2003, and basically we are working on research and publications related social enterprise models, business ecosystems, policy and business plan, business scoping linkage, and of course we are preparing manual and toolkit for young and women's entrepreneurs. And now recently we are engaging with the university, the Kathmandu University, with the renowned university to prepare curriculum, and we do the different types of study with the university. So just we published one study about the policy landscape of social enterprise in Nepal. And second, we are doing the partnership and capacity building of the different multi-stakeholders, government and cooperatives and enterprises agencies, and of course there is the private and public enterprise agencies, and we do the formal and informal trainings, and also doing now social business schooling in the school and communities. And the third, our activity area is the policy advocacy, especially focusing the legal and the other areas of policy advocacy to create the ecosystem for the social enterprise in Nepal. And we have a social enterprise forum. I am a convener of social enterprise forum, and more than 800 individuals, business communities, and networks also, they are the part of this forum, and we are sharing and learning different our experience. And third, our initiative is startup support and innovations culture and incubations for the enterprise, and we are connected with the banking sectors, and also the other stakeholder who can support the small scale farmers and youth and women's group. Those are interested in engaging the social enterprise. So a couple of activities we are doing, and we are very new for the Catalyst 2030. However, we are boosting slowly, and of course this initiative, this Christian initiative is very, very important for us, because it will be it will be the knowledge sharing hub for us to the Latin America or Africa or the Europe. So it's very important for our learning, and of course sharing our experience. So but in future, I think we need to go in details how we can set up in the country level project or country level plan, and how we can extend our knowledge to the regional level or the global level. That is my one query in the future initiatives. So thank you, Maria, Lisa, and the team who are working very hard. And when you presented details, of course, it's highlighted more of the issues, and we will discuss in our chapters, and of course we'll be part of this process. And thank you, team. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arjun, for sharing that. It's always nice to know what's happening in the different countries. And as you said, it's like the learning that you're going to have globally, but also how can that translate back into the country level. So we have one more person right now who's asked for the floor, Nobby Salongo from the Philippines, Director of the De La Salle University, Social Enterprise and Enterprise Development. Nobby, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Lisa, for the presentation earlier, and of course to our reactors also for sharing your insights. So as a member of the social enterprise sector and Crescent working group in the Philippines, I believe that it's very crucial for us to help social enterprises in both the recovery efforts, particularly addressing the chilling effects of COVID-19 pandemic, as well as their initiatives to recalibrate their efforts, particularly on their business plans, to be more responsive to the new normal. And of course, to ensure business continuity and sustainability of their efforts, particularly on social and environmental. So that the transformative role of social and community enterprises, which actually comes from its features being inclusive in terms of the participation of the stakeholders and in the management structure, the quality participation from the planning to operation, and of course, the equitable valuation on non-monetary contributions of communities are very much aligned with what we do in LCD Center and this initiative. We also know that a lot of social enterprises, not just in the Philippines, but globally, had to close down because of the COVID-19, therefore making it more challenging to the most vulnerable sectors to sustain their needs. So the poverty situation, which has become intergenerational, is really something that we need to address as a global community. In LCD Center of LaSalle, we facilitate the formation of our students by allowing them to work with communities in developing community-based social enterprises, in addressing societal divides, and of course, in localizing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We do this through our curricular and co-curricular efforts on a national level. This is the very reason why the catalyzing recovery of social and community enterprises for transformation is needed as a positive response to the complex challenges that we face as a community. LCD Center of the LSU, as a member of the Present Coalition of the Philippines, is supportive of this very timely effort or initiative of ISEA on recovery efforts for social and economic enterprises globally. Thank you.
Thank you so much for underlying the issue about being poverty. There's a lot of social enterprises have closed. I think that's the reality of the situation. So thank you for bringing us back to that highlight of why this initiative, Crescent, is so important. Goma, do we have anyone else lined up right now? I don't see any hands put up.
We don't have lined up, but maybe we can ask who is ready.
Okay. All right, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Goma. Anybody else would like to take the floor before we move to the next step of actually calling for volunteers and forming the group together? Perhaps you can use the raise hand function so I can see you, or just grab the mic if you want to say a few words.
Lina?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to just share that I appreciated the comments of our Latin America and African colleagues, no? Especially in relation to ensuring that any Crescent program should ensure an enabling ecosystem for social entrepreneurs and social enterprises to become sustainable leaders and organizations for systems change. No, I think that's the essence. Yes. And I really appreciate as well the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration going beyond the social enterprise sector so that we're able to collaborate for systems change, ensuring that in the process, we actually address redistributive justice in terms of the power and resource redistribution towards poor and marginalized and the communities. So I just wanted to underline that, and maybe it's important that I also emphasize that the learning exchange.
Your mic is off, sorry.
That learning exchange, collaboration, and engagement with government and other sectors are actually key aspects of the platforms, the 5 platforms that we actually set up in Asia Pacific. And maybe that's the reason why I didn't explain that too much in the Crescent program, because I did connect the Crescent program, the Crescent initiative, to the 5 platforms that already are existing in Asia Pacific in that context. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. Those are very pertinent points that we shouldn't lose in the conversation. I also do see this as very unique because, in fact, I've had a lot of people talk about the fact that there are very few organizations focused on poverty alleviation. Cecilia talked about climate action, and there's a lot of people now jumping on the board of climate action, but it's the marginalized communities that are going to be the most impacted, and they are really the solution. So I love this initiative because it's really galvanizing people to focus on the grassroots community level, where there's the lived experience, where the real innovation is coming from. If there's no other persons asking for the floor, should we move on to the other section? If we do, then I would love to call on you, Dr. Lisa, to start the process of defining what the next steps are and seeing if we can have an open call for volunteers.
I think what was underlined, Lina, by our reactors from Latin America and Africa is the need for continuing dialogue, I think,
yes,
between the regions, so that we can actually co-create this initiative in a manner that is relevant to our respective regions. No?
Yes.
So while we actually had an initial thinking that maybe we can start the process of setting up a working group, no, a Crescent working group, maybe if that is premature globally, we might want to just continue the conversation with Latin America and Africa in terms of co-creating what Crescent should be conceptually, and then maybe move ahead in Asia Pacific and the Philippines and other countries that may want to initiate Crescent to show proof of concept in the next 3 years. We can go ahead with the initiative as it is already pushing through in our regions and in the Asia Pacific region and in the Philippines. Actually, for WFTO Asia, they're even willing to also co-create an initiative in Bangladesh. So there can be some countries that can initiate COVID-19 Crescent to show proof of concept in the next 3 years. But at the same time, continue this conversation with our global colleagues in Latin America and Africa to actually truly co-create this initiative.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. I totally agree with you. And in fact, if you remember when Jesu opened up her comments in the beginning, she felt like maybe we should focus on the regional first and then prototype it to the global. So yes,
and we're fine with that. No, I mean the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, Catalyst 2030 chapters in Asia Pacific, as well as the World Fair Trade Organization Asia, which are co-convening the Asia Pacific Initiative, are prepared to pursue the initiative as we have outlined, and maybe as we pursue this initiative, we can show how we're doing it in Asia Pacific and share this with our Latin America and African colleagues, no? Continue the learning process also, co-creation process with Africa and Latin America. But at the same time, I think engaging at the grassroots, no? At the country level, that's where we want to create the greatest impact and to show proof of concept. So maybe that's why the Poverty Reduction through Social Entrepreneurship Coalition initiative to co-create something in the Philippines is also very important at this point. So I guess we will be pursuing it in an uneven manner, I think. But I really appreciate this continuing conversation to actually make, to truly make this global initiative for systems change, no, as Catalyst 2030 is actually pursuing. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have some of our African friends who have comments. Yami, I'll start with you and then I'll turn to Bernard.
Yes, thank you there, Lina. Yeah, I really just want to echo those last points from Lisa. We really need to reflect, but it's not about sitting back and just talking and then writing up documents. It's really about really understanding deeply what is it we want to achieve here. What should this look like, and what does this truly have the opportunity to unlock? Because from where we sit, really, when the team from Asia Pacific reached out to us, we saw this as a chance to crystallize. You know, like we know in chemistry class, when, you know, way back, a chance to crystallize. Because if you are the one bringing that thing that's going to affect the change, now the nuance or the narrative of how you engage with anybody else now starts to change, because you've been most important, you've been very intentional about how you're going to go about doing this. So from our standpoint, you find that a lot of these things, even if you were to bring, I don't know, $1 billion or $100 billion to a lot of these African institutions, not even social enterprises, NGOs, trusts, foundations, are they really built? Are they really ready to understand? I think there was somebody from the Philippines who was giving points earlier about how it's not even about being proximity, it's even about how that you can even measure what's going to happen once that collaboration starts to happen. You can actually start to see the effects of the change that's going to come. And these are the kind of things that you really, when we are talking systems change, do people even understand what that even means? I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be condescending or anything. It's just that you have to actually own the context of what that means, and it has to be practical. It can't just be an abstract concept. It needs to be something that somebody can actually relate to and say, oh, when they talk to, oh, you mean like this. They must be able to give an analogy, because it's rooted, like I said earlier, in their needs, in their identity, so they get that sense. So from our side, really, we are really going to be working deep and very hard with the team, just to make sure that, as I said earlier, through this Africa Forward framework that we have, but really taking the time to observe and watch, because Asia Pacific has done a fantastic job. I'm talking the structures that they've gone, the kind of institutions that are now taking it upon themselves to lead thematic working groups, and even identifying that these are the key areas that if we did something here, catalytic change will come. You have to have deep reflection about these things, because those contexts are not the same across the board. Even though they may be similar, something else may there's going to be a slight nuance in that. So really for us, it's to say, yes, the conversation will continue, but it's not just a conversation. It's getting that proof of concept, getting that sense of what could this look like, what kind of change could this look like, and getting that concept proposal that when you take it to anybody, it's almost like you can clearly see that anyone anyway can actually see that this thing is going to affect change. I want to come on board. They just want to help. And that's what we really want to see happening. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lisa, is it okay for me to share a little bit of my comments based on what Yami just said?
Sure.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so I really think that that's key in terms of, like you say, what do we mean by systems change, right? Everybody uses that term very systematically. And I've had also the conversation with Dr. Lisa before about, everyone just assumes that social entrepreneurship and impact investing is the solution, right? But within social entrepreneurship, also, we know there's so many different layers of it. Like here in this group, I've heard everyone talk about the lived experience, the innovations coming out from the grassroots, the people most impacted, the shifting of power and wealth back to those marginalized communities. And then when it comes to the system of finance, I'm in restorative investing group that I've been part of. We've also been talking about, this impact investing, do good, do well. Has that really created systems change? It hasn't, right? And so do we need a different form of finance? Like, do we need to look at a less extractive model? Do we need to look at, shifting wealth and power back to communities? So I think you're totally right in terms of like, what kind of systems change do we want to see? How are we all contributing to that? Then we can actually measure that as well. And then coming back to your point of identity, and Cecilia mentioned that too, there's so many people out there who are actually doing the work, but don't identify themselves as social entrepreneurs and may not have the tools, like you said. Like even for us, Angels of Impact, we took quite a while before we started systematically being able to tell the story of how we make impact, because we were so busy making impact, right? So I just wanted to highlight that I totally resonate with some of the points you just said. Bernard unfortunately said he could not speak up because he's experiencing heavy storm there. And I think Gomez suggested he write in his comments. Anybody else would like to take the floor? This has been such an inspiring and stimulating conversation here. I think there's a lot for people to process. I'll give it a few moments to see if anybody wants to jump in. Yes, Asan. You've unmuted yourself. Asan Ullah.
Thank you very much. I actually from the Asan Ullah, born in Bangladesh. First of all, I would like to congratulate Catalyzing the recovery of social and community entrepreneurial task force recently. Entrepreneurs for taking a timely step. We are making many kinds of products, it is not possible to reach its service due to lack of necessary sponsorship and financial support. Financial support. This important was need to be implemented in remote village. We have to work. We have to work together for the speedy implementation of the tax. We have to take the convention to do is a formidable movement for safe adulterated food of the people by patronize all the talent best in the village. Let us all together fill the whole world with green. Wherever are you, well, healthy and safe. Farmer Asanullah, founder National Food Bank of Bangladesh. Thank you so much. Thank you, Natural World Economy and Green Healthy of Safe to our world people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking the time to share that experience and the importance to support initiatives at the village level. Thank you very much. If anybody else, I'm just going to give it a few moments to see if anyone else wants to take the floor. Okay, 2 minutes. If not, I think, Gomer, we are coming to the end. And Dr. Lisa, should we come to the close the session?
Yeah, maybe Lina, just as a closing remark, I would just like to propose that rather than setting up a COVID-19 Crescent global working group as we had originally thought would be a good idea, at this point, given the reactors' comments, and also I think the need for learning exchange as well as co-creation to continue as a process in the next few months, that we actually just pursue a global coordinating group, perhaps, for Catalyst 2030, so that Asia, Latin America, and Africa can continue to actually have learning exchange and a co-creation process for on the COVID-19 Crescent initiative, because I think it would be a pity if, this will be a one-shot deal, right?
Yes.
And then we just go about what we're doing in Asia Pacific, and then just share what we are doing, right?
Yeah.
I think we have a lot to learn from Latin America and Africa as well. And in the same way that we can share, we can continue to share our initiatives and our perspectives from Asia Pacific. So I think that global coordinating group for this initiative focused on learning exchange and co-creation be put on the table. And maybe we do not need to agree on it here because this is a forum, but maybe Gabby, Cecilia, Yahweh, and the rest of the Catalyst 2030 colleagues. There is a system within Catalyst 2030. So I guess we can put that up as an agenda in one of the general assemblies of Catalyst 2030. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good idea to keep the conversation going through a coordinating group until the ideas crystallize together. So would you suggest that whoever's interested in that email you and Gomer to indicate interest?
Yes.
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 Okay.
And particularly, I think for the global initiative, we would be needing people who are willing to lead initiatives in countries, in sub-regions or regions, right? So that it could truly be a coordinating effort. Yeah.
Sure. Sounds good. Yame, does that sound good for you? And Gabby? Yes. I assume I get thumbs ups from them.
Yes. We're already moving. We're talking to the Impacted Africa Secretariat, which is the network of impact investors across the ecosystem across Africa. We're also talking to UNDP. They've actually created a new initiative. They're trying to do after COVID. They want to see this build for a better narrative, but where it's truly rooted in changing the funding narrative. They've got their own initiative. So I think the conversations are happening. But like Lisa's already mentioned, it's just taking that bit of pause, you know, just saying, okay, what does this really look like? And then just give it, it doesn't have to even take long. It could even be just a 3-month process. And then that process, you know, you say, is you crystallize right on the key points, and then that's the end of it. And then, so it doesn't even have to take long. Yes. Yeah. Totally agree.
And there's a certain element of it where you're crystallizing the thoughts, but I think you, as you said, Africa's already moving forward, right? Latin America's already moving forward, Asia Pacific. So there is power in also collaboration, because funding, as you know, in terms of there is, at least this is my experience, I've actually seen organizations that band together for funding together actually have more success than separately everyone trying to do on your own. So that could also be an element that comes out of it. So we'll see.
Sorry, Lena, on that very point, I mean, one thing that Lisa, and I hope people have picked up, that decentralized nature of what's going to happen after for the funding to be sustainable from there. That's how that is going to now becomes, even that is going to become sustainable after that, because you've taken that time to really take a step back and then collaborate, co-create, and then get the very clear issues and the way you're going to work together. And then when that is done properly, it makes life easy for everybody, because it's what do they call it? You understand the same thing the same way. So it makes cross-border and
the same language. At least
the
we
same
don't
language
have
across
miscommunication.
Yes, but now can you imagine if it's across the whole global south? Then that's happening. That's truly going to be transformative, honestly. Yeah.
So Africa forward and Crescent forward. There you go.
Lina, there's actually an initiative within Catalyst 2030 for shifting the funding paradigm. No, so I think one of the things that we need to do as a coordinating group, if ever, is to actually pursue a dialogue with the Catalyst Hub, which is the one in charge for the funding paradigm, for shifting the funding paradigm within Catalyst 2030.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I see a note someone put in the chat for signing a letter. And I guess whoever's interested in that can sign the letter. But on that note, shall I close the session then? Goma and Lisa? Yeah?
Go ahead, Lina. Thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. This has been a very inspiring, just hearing what's happening around the world, very concrete conversations around deep issues, not only from a structural issue of what we're doing, but I'm still very touched with Gabby reminding us about well-being and the existential elements of what we need to say. And all of us in different organizations are also struggling with our own existential sustainability. So this has been a very inspiring, for me, it was actually 4:30 in the morning, so it's now 7 a.m. But it was definitely worth it. And thank you very much for everyone for being here. And thank you for inviting me also, Lisa and Gomer, to be the moderator for today.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you for joining us and sharing your time, even at a very early morning.
Most welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.